Hi, everyone, and welcome. Oh, I'm so happy to be with you all today. Let me put you all on gallery view so I can see you. Let's see. Okay, I'm not going to do that actually. Oh, it's so good to be with you all today. And I am thrilled to be inviting and having once again the amazing Josh Martin here. He, hi Josh, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So he just got back from a social media Google event yesterday, and this is a real wealth of knowledge right here. This man knows what he's talking about when it comes to Google AdWords, when it comes to social media, it's creating a strategy, and really whatever you need to do to get your business facing in the right direction and really beginning to master social media because it's something that you can learn so that you don't have to pay someone to go in there. And that can be a real cost saver. It can also be really empowering to be able to do it yourself. But if you need somebody to help you, Josh is here and he's available. And he takes on clients and he'd love to work with you. So a couple things about Josh. So he is the founder of Denver Marketing Solutions. So even though he's based in Colorado, he really has helped people from all over the US and internationally. So regardless of where you're located, you're in good hands with Josh. And I know that there are people who have all types of businesses here. We are going to be just in a few examples using pet services as an example because I know there are a lot of pet business owners here in addition to all types of business owners. So if you're not a pet business owner, you can insert your type of business in terms of whatever Josh is talking about. And so just to know that. And also he has created, I love it, there's a cat there with G, that's so cute. Hello G. So he's created a really extensive tips and tools booklet that I am going to be giving you all. I'm going to be emailing that to you so that you have it. And I'm going to be doing that, a few minutes after the webinar. There's also a special offer that he's offering. You can do it or not. He's offering this really to just be able to help you further if you need that. And it's a really great offer. So if you feel inspired to do that, he'll be sharing just a little bit more about that at some point during the webinar. So I want to encourage you all to mute if you haven't already. So if you'd be willing to do that, that would be great. If you need help muting, I can help you. So I'm your tech angel today. You can send me messages if you have questions during this masterclass. I want to encourage you to send me the questions directly. And I will be keeping track of all of those questions, and then I will be asking you, Mr. Wonderful, Amazing Social Media Expert, the questions that the audience has asked. So just feel free to send them to me, and I'll be happy to do that, to gather those and ask those. And if you'd prefer to ask them yourself, you can simply use the raise hand icon and ask them. If you prefer to just engage with Josh and have a conversation, that's fine too. So we are going to get started. I am going to be here the whole time, so I'm going to be supporting all of you. If you have any tech challenges or questions, including you, Josh, I'm here to support you as well. I will be off camera, but I'm going to be here the whole time. So feel free to reach out to me, you wonderful attendees, if you need to. I'm here to support you in any way that I can. And also, like I said, to gather your questions. So here we go. Let's get started.
Awesome. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate that. I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen here briefly. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera for a minute so I'm not too distracting. So just one moment there. All right. So I'm really excited to share with everybody here today a little bit more about just how to create a social media strategy for your business. And a lot of what we're going to learn here is impactful for small to medium and even large businesses. And it can be really hard to know where to get started with a social media strategy. So we're going to help you get some key touch points here to begin with that today. And over the next 60 minutes, we're going to develop an understanding of why it's important for your business to be authentically represented on social media, not just represented, but really having a good brand voice and brand tone. How to create powerful and compelling content for social media marketing, the most effective and up-to-date strategies for management techniques, how to take a little bit of the effort out of the day-to-day management. And then we'll talk a little bit about some pro tips on how to develop your own strategy and analysis in 2023. So you'll be able to use some of what you've learned today to look at your existing social media assets and really have a good understanding of how to move forward from there. A little bit more about me before we dive in. Josh Martin. I'm from New Jersey. I moved to Colorado around 2007, but boy, I've probably lived in at least half the states in the union. 15 years digital marketing experience, business owner and consultant. Love time with the family, football, camping, anything outdoors, and just generally learning new things. I'm a Google certified premier partner, Bing accredited professional, and a Google grant recipient. But what I'm really excited to dive into today is taking a look at these aspects here. We'll have a quick look at setting goals for your social media campaign, how to build an empowering buyer persona, or in other words, who your consumers might be here on social media. We'll take a look at what types of content to publish depending on who you're trying to reach, how frequent you should post, and how to be consistent about that frequency of posting. How to gain some trust through prospective clients. That's a big oversight in a lot of campaigns that sometimes you end up losing some trust rather than gaining it once you head down that path. And then how to assess what is or isn't working. And then we'll open it up at the end to a quick Q&A. Briefly, Kristen mentioned that we do have an exclusive offer. This is for participants of today's webinar, and Denver Marketing Solutions is offering a free video vignette. These are 6, 15, or 30-second videos. There's a few examples of what these would look like above. Just some really cool stuff using some of the latest technology that YouTube is providing, and it's AI driven, so it's pretty neat stuff. We'll also include a market analysis, and this is a document that will outline where you stand in the digital market, where your competitors are currently investing in digital marketing, and even project the results you would receive with any given campaign, social media, SEO, or search engine marketing. So with that out of the way, let's dive in and begin to learn a little bit. So first, let's talk about setting social media goals that make sense for your business. It can be a tendency to get very excited and begin to kind of run after the new shiny thing, be it TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it may be. But without setting goals, businesses can oftentimes end up making some mistakes in social media that hurt their brand more than help. So before you begin, even with your first post, start to develop an understanding of what kind of goals are right for your business. What is the end goal and point of all of your social media efforts? Is it to build trust and rapport with your audience? Is it to attract new prospects into your marketing system? Or maybe you're just trying to explore pain points of your existing audience and marketing group. Provide solutions that overcome objections. That's a very good use for social media. You can directly engage with prospects and clients, or even just deepen your loyalty with some of your existing clients. And then something that's also overlooked is building reputation within search engines. So consistent posting in social media or consistent marketing through social media will have a crossover effect into search engines, into something called search engine optimization. And so in other words, to simplify it, the way search engines now look at your social media profiles is not in a silo. It's very holistic. They can now associate your website with your social media profiles and your posts. And they're going to develop an understanding of how trustworthy you are as a brand and a website, not just off of your website, but the content of your social media profiles, posts, and marketing as well. And a lot of this comes down to a change that was made around 2010, where Google decided it was going to no longer ignore social media profiles and posts, and it was going to start to incorporate that into its search ranking. A few years back in 2002, we saw very few organic listings in Google, or in other words, listings in Google, that were shareable, were something you would want to share on social media. Flash forward to just a few years ago, and we see a much larger divergence and overlap there, where a lot of what you'll see in your Google search result is either something that was already shared on social media or is shareable by itself. So I'm not saying make this the core strategy of your social media efforts, but it is something to keep in mind. And going back to the sentiment that if you don't feel like you can be consistent with posting, this might be a good juncture to not begin posting to social media, because it'll not only hurt your brand in the user's perspective, because it doesn't look good to have a profile that hasn't been posted to for a long time, but it's also going to hurt you from a search engine or search engine optimization perspective. Now, with that caution out of the way, let's get back to kind of setting those goals. And you may have seen a system like this similarly. There's a bunch out there, but I like this one in particular for social media, and it's the SMART goal system. And I like to run any social media campaign, be it just a posting campaign or an advertising campaign, through this system before I set out. And so first, just be specific. So what is your goal? Is it to get more phone calls? Is it to get more form fills? Or maybe you're trying to get more e-commerce sales on your website, or maybe just better brand recognition. Whatever that may be, just go ahead and be specific to what that goal should be. Once you've determined that, is it measurable? How are you going to measure that goal? So things like phone calls and form fills or e-commerce sales, those are highly measurable. We can tell when they happened, and we can tell what drove that interaction. Was it a post or was it a paid search advertisement? Then take a look at your goal and see if it's achievable. So if it's specific, it's measurable, it may be achievable. But here's an example there. So getting 1,000 new leads from your social media campaign is 100% achievable, yes. But what often happens here is we'll head over to realistic and realize, given current budget, it's not realistic to get 1,000 leads. So a lot of times what we'll see is people get stuck on AR and kind of bounce back and forth. And that's a good, healthy decision-making process. So once you feel confident that it's specific, measurable, and achievable, move on to timely. Can this be done in a timely fashion? If so, how frequent is that? Should we be investing in this monthly, quarterly, weekly, daily? Once you feel comfortable with all 5 of these elements, then I would move forward with either beginning to post or beginning with your marketing campaign. We'll kind of touch back on this a few more times as we proceed through the deck today. And then briefly too, down here in the QR, you will be able to download a copy of today's deck. That's also going to be sent to you after today's conversation. But let's move on to building a buyer persona for social media. Now, a buyer persona can be many things, but in its most simple form, think of it as a thumbnail portrait of who your typical clientele is, or who you aspire for your typical clientele to be. Buyer personas don't have to be one. In fact, most groups, agencies, and businesses have a plethora of buyer personas because we are all unique. No single person is part of a monolith. But you want to try to kind of develop a persona of who we're speaking to. And this is going to help you in a few ways. Before you dive in, though, keep it simple. Who's your audience? So who are we speaking to through social media? What are we going to say to our audience that's useful? That's a very important thing. And useful doesn't mean informative always. Sometimes something funny is useful. Where will you say it? So what channels, what vehicles, what platforms? And we'll have some more on how to make that decision a little bit later. And then how frequent? So how often are you going to speak to this audience or this particular buyer persona? Let's kind of look at a quick sketch of what one of these would look like. And so this is a buyer persona for an individual first-time Fran. And in this example, we're talking about a pet business, but this applies to nearly every business. So here we have first-time Fran, and she has gotten a dog for the first time in her life. Having lived with roommates and family her entire life, Fran doesn't know where to begin with her dog's needs, specifically walking and grooming. Because she is working a lot and she has begun to consider a dog walking service and grooming service. So due to her tight time constraints, Franny's using a lot of resources to collect as much information as possible. She's performing searches on Google and utilizing Twitter and Facebook to gather advice and information from friends and family. Then we go on to some key traits, and I encourage you to make 5 to 10 of these. She's a socializing single. She's an urban dweller. She's hip. She's cutting edge. And once you feel like you've sketched out who your ideal persona is, or who your common persona is, who you often work with already, this is a tool that can then later be used in a few ways. When developing social media campaigns, these are often the questions that social media platforms are going to ask you about your audience. What type of interests do they have? What kind of schedule does this person have? Having an understanding of Fran and her needs is going to help you build a better campaign that has better messaging towards her. Now, again, I encourage you to make multiple personas. This is kind of just scratching the surface. And these almost index cards like we're looking at here are a great resource to hand over to any sort of marketing agency or firm because then they can dive into these personas and develop a wealth of targeting methods based off of this. So moving on to one last piece here in developing the persona. So oftentimes people and groups will develop personas. They're happy to have them, but then don't know when and where to utilize that persona. And I think what helps is to have an understanding of what I call PO, your paid, owned, and earned assets. So a paid asset is anything that you are paying for placement. So think of maybe if you've ever done Google Ads, maybe you've done some YouTube commercials. If you're paying to show that content, that would be paid placement. This particular asset usually drives in strangers or people who have never heard of your brand. So they're just getting aware for the first time through a paid asset. An owned asset is something you as a brand, company, or individual own outright. So think of your website, your social media pages, your posts, your Google My Business profile, maybe any blogs that you may have written. A good way to tell if it's an owned asset is if you have 100% control of that asset. You can delete it, you can change it, you can do what you please with it. Owned assets typically will drive in customers. These could be existing, these could be new customers, but your owned assets tools are to drive in customers. So it's important you think of social media as an owned asset. Next, we have earned. So an earned asset typically drives in fans, which could convert into customers. Fans are people who leave reviews, they leave you views on videos, they repost and share your content, or they just simply follow your content. Fans are a big part of this overall ecosystem. So once you have an understanding of what are your paid assets as a company, owned and earned assets, you can then begin to understand, where do my different buyer personas belong? Am I going to find more of my target persona in the paid realm? Are they strangers to my brand? Owned? Am I going to be able to data mine some of what I already own to find consumers and customers? Or will they live in earned? Oftentimes we find it's a combination. So depending on the different buyer persona, they may fall into a different piece of the PO or the POE. And so really the key takeaways from this section would be really just develop multiple personas, understand what are your company's PO assets, be conscious of how these personas fit into these different elements digitally, and understand what platforms are best to achieve that. And that can be kind of a loaded topic as to, where should we distribute our social media messaging? The most obvious is organic social. So just beginning to post. You're not paying for any sort of advertisement. You're just posting. You could use syndication partners. And those are sites that help to push things out for you. You think of press releases or PR Newswire if you've ever used anything like that. Local publications, newspapers, newsletters, emails, paid social media, or just in general, paid distribution are all options. But a couple good rules of thumb is maybe just simplify your business to B2B, so business to business, or B2C, business to consumer. And once you have that, it begins to become a little bit more clear what channels you should begin to distribute some of your social media messaging. A good example there is business to business clients tend to do very well on LinkedIn, just due to the nature of that website being business oriented. They also do well on things like Instagram and Facebook. Business to consumers, so think of e-commerce or any sort of tangible service that's being exchanged. They do very well on traditional social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat. So really go back to what your personas are and where you believe your users are most active before deciding on what distribution channel. Next, we'll just take a quick look on what types of content to publish. And not all content is created equal. And it's not just about whether or not you choose to do video or images or text, because algorithms look at content in a few varying ways. Before we dive into that, let's kind of understand how the typical content team is structured. And I do understand in many small to medium-sized businesses, this could be one person or two people wearing all of these hats. But it's good to see how this editorial process typically plays out to set yourself up with the most possible success in social media. And so let's start here where it all starts with the creative writer. And creative writing is probably, I argue, to be maybe the most important piece of this element. And this person's responsible for creating content, taking photos, making videos, writing texts, and participating in any sort of brainstorming or meetings. Then we'll have a content owner in yellow here. These typically are subject matter experts. They're responsible for approving and publishing the content that was created by the creative writing team. They give feedback, they facilitate team meetings. Once these two individuals have came to agreement, then everything heads into the green section here, into the editor. Well, they'll give final editing. They will assign any additional projects back to the subject matter experts and the writing team, and then they will manage those projects until they are posted. This is the typical process followed with every post in large-scale social media advertising campaigns. And again, I realize that maybe not all instances can we have three individuals able to manage this, or maybe the size of your social media network doesn't yet justify that. But if you keep this three-pronged process in mind as you set out, you're going to set your account structure up for success, and it'll be easily handed off as it grows to a team. And moving forward a little bit into the types of content that I mentioned a moment ago. So I at the top of the slides said it's not all equal, but it is in all equal importance, for lack of a better term. So having a little bit of each content type is very important to a search engine. Having a little bit of each of these content types we'll review here is also important to the users of a social media property. Do you need all of what we're going to look through in this pyramid? No, but having a little bit of each is very helpful for your overall online credibility and search engine presence. So first, let's start at the bottom of the pyramid here with the evergreen content. This is content that no matter what time of year it is, no matter who's reading it, they're going to get some value out of it. They're going to find something interesting enough to potentially share. This can be silly memes or how-to articles, checklists, infographics. This content is going to provide you and your users value year-round. Then we have newsworthy or trendy content. Now, this content's important to have because it does help your posts and your marketing efforts to potentially go viral. which has so many good implications and is essentially free marketing once that happens. These are day of articles. They are event centric. They have a time limit though. So they will usually give you a spike in users, a spike engagement, and disappear. A lot of profiles really just live in these two post types. So newsworthy and trendy, and then evergreen content. More robust social media profiles move into the yellow portion of the pyramid. So the long form content. And these can be things like testimonials, case studies. It could be even content you didn't create, like reviews. Long form content is providing something of value for sure, but it's something that not everyone is going to seek out necessarily. And so long form content is something most profiles struggle to come by, but when you do, when the spark hits and potentially you've came up with something that would be let's say as long as a blog or over 300 characters, you have yourself a piece of long form content. And last but not least, we have thought leadership. And this is very similar to long form content because this is also over 300 characters of information, but it's more data driven. We're thinking more like ebooks, white papers. And this is for businesses who are trying to set themselves poise themselves in the industry as a leader of thought to be followed throughout. And so again, there is no perfect mixture of these 4 content types, but it's good to try your best to speckle in a little bit of each of these, with a heavy piece of the foundation being newsworthy and evergreen content. So that's the general types of content, so length and size, but what kind of topics should we cover? Some that do really well in social media are ideas. So if you have an idea or a tangible thought that solves a problem, it can be a common problem or a problem related to your industry. Share that. That's something highly viral, highly engaging. Value. What could you do to provide value? White paper, ebooks, newsletters, continuous updates on social media. Credibility is another topic. So you could repost reviews, testimonials, success stories, and think of your personas as you work through this. People like First Time Fran would respond very well to reviews, testimonials, and success stories. Personalization is another great value add. So how can you answer questions from your consumers? And a really great lightweight way to do this is to use Google My Business and their questions and answers services. This will actually allow people to ask your business questions directly from Google search. And then last but not least, entertainment. It's a big topic matter in social media and can be hard to strike a balance that's entertaining and not offensive. But contests and sweepstakes tend to be a good way for small to medium-sized businesses to strike that balance with little effort and content creation. And then last but not least, determine the types of content. And this is one I highly recommend with going through your SMART system, really looking at the realistic side of things and the timely side of things. Ideally, all businesses could produce all of the content we want as quickly as we could. But in this case, we have video, images, podcasts. Do you do long form podcasts, long form video, short form? What will your buyer personas respond to the most? Some of the most common forms of content that gets engagement are images, specifically memes, and then video content right now. What's nice and why I highly recommend video content is when someone's on a social media network is it stops the scroll. So as they're scrolling through, videos have a higher likelihood for someone to stop, look at the movement they're seeing on their screen, and potentially engage with some of that content. But again, there is no right answer here. It's up to your personas. But here's some great ideas to get you started in terms of the types of content that you could deliver. Next here, let's just talk a little bit about how frequently should you post and how to be consistent. They like to say in the digital marketing world that content is king. And that's a great saying, but I like to follow that up. Well, if content is king, then consistency is queen. Because if you set out on this voyage, you can end up hurting your brand by beginning to maintain social media platforms that go fallow. As we mentioned earlier, if someone were to find a dead profile, it looks very badly on the brand. If they haven't posted in months, it can hurt more than help. But through this process, determine your publishing schedule. What are you going to publish? So take a look at those last few slides, understand what, how often, and who will be responsible for researching, writing, designing, approving, publishing, and sharing. Oftentimes, this would be the content creation team. This could be just one individual. As a lot of people in the agency world would call this individual, this would unfortunately be the one throat to choke, so to speak. The person responsible to make sure that your postings and schedule happens as you hope it to be. So let's start first by just making a content calendar. This can be as simple as just buying a paper calendar and beginning to sketch this out. I encourage you again to be keeping in mind reasonable. Is it reasonable and timely to be able to post in the manner you're hoping to social networks? This is just an example of how many of our clients would work this, but for example, daily social media updates, website articles 3 times a week, newsletters 2 times a month, videos 2 times per month, news releases 1 time per month. That is an aggressive schedule. And even if you were just to start with a cadence of 1 post on 1 platform once a month, that is a good start. And it's extremely reasonable for almost every business to be able to do that much. Your audience might be small because you're not posting a lot, but your consistency will help them to know when you will be posting. Once you feel comfortable with the volume of posting and you have a rough idea of when you would like to post it, go ahead and create an editorial calendar. And if you work in a team, I highly recommend you make it in a way that's very shareable. Use something like Google Sheets or even a shared calendar to develop this. Make sure that your personas are still being kept in mind as you decide when to post. So are people in your personas more active in the weekends, Friday evening? What does that look like? But make sure that this calendar is easily accessible. Keep it simple and keep it very clean. There are some tools out there that have free versions as well as paid features. I recommend Buffer and Sprout Social. What's nice about these tools, they will not only help you to make the content calendar we just looked at, but they can help to automate a lot of the posting of these items. So for example, what I recommend you do is sit down once a month, understand how many posts you're planning to make, what's your goal in total amount of posts, and then just schedule those posts using services like Buffer and Sprout Social. They will now post on your behalf the content that you've chosen when you've chosen to post it, and you don't have to worry about it for 30 days. So that's a great way for small to medium-sized businesses to automate a lot of what we would see in a corporate structure that would have a 3-tiered team. So it's a great way to speed that up and use a little bit of AI as well. And that would actually alleviate this workflow process that we see oftentimes here. So oftentimes a common workflow before any post is made or before any marketing campaign is launched in social media is to start with the writer, then that goes to the editor, goes into review, and then several rounds of revision between steps 1, 2, and 3. What's nice about Sprout Social and Buffer is those services have some AI built in to make a lot of the recommendations that would typically be made by steps 1 and 2 in this particular graph. Really allowing you to jump into finalizing your proof, publishing the content, and then whether or not you do want to promote that content when it's been published. So it does help you to streamline some of your marketing dollar and some of the team efforts there. So how do you gain trust from prospective clients? And it's done through content and time, quite frankly. Trust is something that most businesses set out to gain from social media marketing, whether it's organic posts or through paid media. But there are some common, I wouldn't say tricks necessarily, but tools that are used by some of the larger entities to gain you and your consumers' trust through social network. Biggest thing is just sharing high quality content. Quality content isn't just an interesting read; it should be providing value to that reader. And again, a good laugh is value, so it doesn't always have to be serious topic. If you can make someone laugh, you've made their day. Nurture interactions on your social media channel. So customers who share posts, videos, and videos of your products and or your services, they're pretty much endorsing you. And everyone else who sees them posting about you now gets a positive experience, a positive understanding of your brand and who your business is. Encourage user-generated content. I mean, the power of social media comes from socializing, and too few people remember that. I think, too, a good example of this would be the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge a few years ago. My goodness, the amount of good that did. And that would be a good example of user-generated content where you're using your own fans and audience to help spread your word. Oh, pardon me. Ask customers to review your company. So reach out to existing customers. Say, please, can you leave us a review on Google? Could you leave us one on Facebook? This will help to establish brand trust, and any new consumers will review that. And say your business it sells a major purchasing decision. Let's say it's appliances or maybe automotive services. Major purchasing decisions, 90% of the time, are influenced by the reviews of your company. Use trustworthy links in your post. So it's very detrimental to have a post or a blog on your site that's going to a spam link or a broken link. And so, especially in terms of your website, if you are posting blogs and you have been for some time, double check some of the links you have put on your blog years ago aren't broken, because that can definitely hurt your trustworthy factors, both in terms of the way consumers look at you and search engines. Provide an insider view. Behind the scenes look is an absolute great way to foster transparency and show that you and your business have nothing to hide. And this can be done very lightweight with a cell phone, TikTok account, in 5 minutes of your time. Or you could do something a little bit more elaborate and have a video production created about that behind the scenes look. Make sure your branding is consistent. So stay on messaging from your website to your social media platforms to your digital advertising. This consistency gains a lot of trust. When somebody leaves your social media website and they see a different website that's completely different branding, has a different catchphrase to it, doesn't quite match the social media profile they left, they actually lose a lot of trust in that business at that point in time. Stream events. I mean, live videos such as this one. I mean, it encourages interaction with your brand and follow-up conversations. And then share your values. I think out of everything I've just read through here, that's the one that's most often overlooked. Share who your company is at its core, any sort of philanthropy you're doing, any sort of founding story that you may have that may provide value and have interest to it. Make sure that's reflected in your social media content. And that's going to help you gain trust in spades. And trust is not just about what you're saying, it's about where you're saying it. Not all networks are trusted the same. And depending on the environment, it could be a little bit untrustworthy. Here, for example, Facebook, about 25% of all Americans polled here say that they trust Facebook, 15% for YouTube, so on and so on. Twitter here recently renamed X. It would be a great example of one that has recently lost a lot of trust and reputation. It, as virtue of that, has lost a lot of advertisers. So keep in mind who your target persona is, what you're saying, but then also where you're saying. For most businesses, Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram are a safe bet. They're known entities. The people who use those are very comfortable with those social networks, irrespective to their actual credibility or safety to some degree. Um, Business to business, I highly recommend LinkedIn. In that category, it does have a slightly higher trust, but similar to Twitter, it's lower on the spectrum. So if I had to pick two, I'd say Facebook and YouTube. It's a great way for a small business to have the most possible reach. And with that in mind, here's a great example of that. It's not just what you're saying, where you're saying, but also how many people are there to hear it. So Facebook has about 2.9 billion active users, YouTube 2.6 billion. So that's my recommendation. If I had to pick two, it would be those social networks. They have the most voice, so they have the most reach. And what that means for you as a business owner is every post has more potential to be seen by more people and maybe even go viral, begin to get shared around and see a lot of views. As you get into smaller, more niche networks, you'll find that you'll have a harder time getting virility, and that if you do go forward with a paid advertising campaign, that you're actually going to pay more per lead or sale in the smaller networks than you would on some of the larger networks. Now, ideally, though, a large, robust social media campaign would have a small presence in nearly all social media campaigns. So moving forward briefly here, how to assess what's working. And I want to leave with this thought because it's one that's really hard to pinpoint for every business because everyone's goal is unique. Whatever their specific goal they chose early in their marketing process. But is it measurable? The M part of things. Yes, it's specific, but is it measurable? And it was Lord Heatherloom who said, I know that half of my advertising budget is completely wasted. I'm just not sure which half. And he said that in the early 1920s. And honestly, he was right. Up until our lifetime with digital advertising, we actually can now begin to track things like phone calls, sales, form conversions, if somebody walked into the business, and even how much revenue was derived from your marketing efforts. And so, unfortunately, I can't get into specific examples because I don't know what your SMART goals are. But once you have them, I highly recommend you make sure they're measurable in the sense that they are a conversion, that you can track exactly how many forms and phone calls and sales you derived from your social media efforts, and how much of that can be tied back to maybe even any sort of paid marketing medium that you engaged with. Otherwise, you're left back with Lord Heatherloom and with 1920s technology. I liken it to having a Ferrari with a wooden engine. So always make sure you're tracking conversions. I really do appreciate everyone's time today. There's a copy of the e-booklet, and this will also be sent via email, but there's a copy of our e-booklet here available in that QR code. This booklet's going to guide you how to analyze your own social media profile. So it's a great place to get started. Start looking at your current digital marketing stance and then grow from there. From here, I'd love to open it up to some questions and answers. Hey, Google, turn on the lights.
Hey, everyone. So this is Kristen. I am so grateful for you, Josh, and all the information that you shared. So far, I only have one question from Carrie. I'm wondering if anybody else has any questions. If it's possible to turn the screen sharing off, that might be good, and then I can see the raised hands, if there are any. So if you would like to directly ask your question of Josh, go ahead and raise your hand, and I will be happy to unmute you. The question that Carrie has in the chat is using AI like ChatGPT to help inspire, Elizabeth has a question. Okay. Is using AI like ChatGPT to help inspire writing a post a good idea?
Yes, I mean, I'd say.
You're muted, Josh.
Pardon me. I'd
No
say
problem.
the short answer is yes. And I hate to do some shameless self promotion, but we are going to do an AI webinar on October 24th at 4
Yeah.
p.m. Pacific time. In that, I will dive into kind of how to use it in more depth. But yes, use it to inspire thought. Search engines as well as social media algorithms are getting very smart at being able to identify AI. So I don't recommend you use it verbatim, but ChatGPT can be wonderful for rewriting quick little snippets of content for social media. For example, let's say you have 1,000 characters of text and you want to condense it down to 100. Just ask ChatGPT to do it. It'll do that very well. You want to always have a human intervening. There's been some pretty high profile cases where attorneys have used it to try to do case briefs and things to that effect. Chat GPT is no expert and it can make some very big errors. So you need the human guidance. But the short answer is yes, it can inspire a lot of thought. It can make some unique content. I think the only other preface I have about using ChatGPT with social media is do make sure it's not plagiarized. So it has a tendency to do that here or there. Run it through a plagiarism checker like Grammarly or plagiarism checker from small SEO tools. And just double check that. But yeah, it's a very useful tool for generating content.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So Elizabeth has a question. I'm asking you to unmute, Elizabeth, and ask your question.
Okay, hi. You had said early on that the social media profiles can be used in SEO and in what the search engines will search out. Does that count for both personal and business pages? So, for example, Facebook, I have a personal page and a business profile, and I post different types of things on each. So do I need to be more careful about what I'm posting on my personal page?
It's a very good question, and it does vary from platform to platform how that works. But all platforms will respect your user preferences. So, for example, if your page is private, that information is never going to make its way into a search engine. Now, if it is a public page, and it's not a personal profile, so an individual's profile, it's for maybe, let's say, oftentimes pages could be like, for example, we have a local balloon race club where I am here. That'll most definitely show up in search. But that person's personal page is not necessarily going to show any content. It's all up to your user settings and your privacy settings as to what's going to make its way to search engines.
Okay. So as long as I keep my posts private within Facebook, on my personal page, they should be safe.
Yes, and in fact, you could even, if you just want that page to be personal, you could even set the page itself to be private. Then don't worry about your posts. The posts will just show to whoever's access to that page.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Anybody else have a question? Go ahead and either raise your hand or write it in the chat. This is a great opportunity to ask questions of Josh. You have him right here. He's available. So I would really encourage you. And if you're shy, go ahead and write it in the chat and I will let him know. I'm going to give you guys just a moment to think. And we covered a lot of ground here. Okay, G, great. All right, G, asking you to unmute, my dear.
Well, I find social media to be kind of exhausting.
Yeah.
I have lots of great pictures on my phone. I've done a couple videos. The sitting down and getting the stuff posted and trying to come up with something cute or whatever to say is tricky.
Mm-hmm.
I have somewhat passed the job over to my mom.
Yeah.
I applaud her effort, so I'm kind of looking for general advice because it's difficult if I'm out walking, with the pets and I'm taking pictures and I take good pictures. And then it's like, okay, I'll do that tonight.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm also not sure how often I should post. And I have lots of questions apparently. And the last one is I tend to use Facebook and Instagram. And what I post on one is posted on the other. And I'm not sure if that is the right thing to do either. And that's all my questions. Thank you.
No, please, more the merrier. And it's okay with Facebook and Instagram. They're designed to do that, to simulcast. It's not advised to simulcast your messaging to other platforms like Twitter, or pardon me, X. I have to get used to that, because those platforms have different criteria, and the users know that. They say, I'm used to using this platform in format A. Why is this posted in format B? They notice those things. So Facebook and Insta, completely fine. I mean, and how often? I would just start with the minimum. Just start with a monthly post of some sort, and from there you can start to grow. And what's nice about that is as you start to post just one thing monthly, give it 6 to 8 months, you'll start to get some data about what people are liking. Data can be something as simple as how many times they liked it, how many times they shared it, or how they interacted with you personally. And so I'd start there, and I think you would like, because I'm the same way. I just am not very, I don't enjoy posting to social media. I'll spend all day on it. I will make marketing campaigns, but posting it, maybe not so much. Buffer and Sprout Social are great for that, because what I like is you sit down the first time, go ahead and load that thing up with maybe 3 or 4 months worth of posts. And then just put a reoccurring calendar appointment to yourself, about once a month, to sit down and just add some more stuff to that. And so you can sit down, get it done, and then don't pay any mind to it until it's time to make some more posts.
Okay, great.
One quick.
Oh yeah, go ahead, G.
So if I'm posting almost daily. Is that excessive?
No, in fact, that's ideal. I often coach people to work up to that. And so, yeah, daily's great.
Okay, next month I will say, well, maybe I need to pull back some. But I just think the content needs to improve. And, I guess I'm not sure. I would like to get more followers and likes and shares and things like that.
And something we didn't have a lot of time for, though, is hashtag strategy too. So on especially Instagram, one that I recommend is a website called All Hashtags. And what's great about this, you put your keyword in, you put your topic in, and it'll spit out the most popular hashtags related to it. So let's say the photos of a cat. You put in cute cat, and it's going to give you all the most popular hashtags. And so that's a great way. You can hand it to your marketing manager, and she can take care of that from there using those hashtags generated by that system. One preface, though, you want to read through them. There's some in there that don't relate, because, for example, maybe one of those hashtags would be cutest kitten Indiana. Well, my business isn't in Indiana. So always read through them before you use them. But it's a great way to get more out of your existing content. So what you can do, since you're already posting daily, maybe review the hashtags in some of your older posts. Update them with new hashtags, and you could get some leverage out of stuff you've already created.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, great. I'm going to call on Nancy Simmons now. So go ahead and unmute. Nancy, it looks like you are. Okay, great.
Thank you so much, Kristen and Josh. Thank you for great content. Just like the previous, I think it was, is it G or G? Mm-hmm. Yeah, social media marketing exhausts me as well. But I saw the SEO part of your presentation, and I was struggling to really understand SEO and how it's changed from 2002, I think you said, till now. So if you could just give me more.
Happy to. I think it's also one of the things that slide helps to do is kind of shake some of the conventional wisdom that search engines are their own silo, and social networks are their own silo. Many people who I speak with have that perception, and it sounds like you're fortunate to not have it, because what happens there is, back in 2002, They were completely separate. In fact, if anything, Google had kind of a problem with Facebook and social networks. They were a little scared of them. Then in 2010, a gentleman named Matt Cutts at Google said, this is silly. All the internet content is going towards social media. We have to begin to include some of this social media stuff in search results, or search is pointless. And so flash forward to about 2022, now we see in that Venn diagram on that particular slide, we see about 80% of our content that's being shown on search either coming from social media or being something that's highly shareable. So you'd want to put it on social media. I wouldn't recommend leading your strategy saying, let's do SEO and social media. But it's very good to be aware of, and sometimes people will have a surprise where, why is this post from, 2 years ago, all of a sudden driving all this traffic? Well, it's likely because a search engine picked it up.
So thank you. That does clarify most of it for me. Follow-up question. Almost daily, I get emails from someone who wants to help me with my SEO. How do I handle? I mean, I just really kind of delete the email and move forward. But what is it that they're just looking for business? Is that basically it?
It is, and it's a terrible form of marketing. It's usually bots. They say, "Hey, we looked at your site," but they didn't. And a good way to limit some of that is if you do have an email address out there, just on like a website, maybe switch that out for a contact form. Because what's nice about the contact form is you can vet them with one of those "I'm not a robot" filters, and that'll limit the amount of those emails you receive.
So I have both. I have a contact form and an email on there. So remove the email, just have the contact form.
I'd recommend it because the way a lot of those bots are designed is they're just going to go out there and look for websites with an open email.
Gotcha.
And I actually leave it on there because I want to see what these guys are up to with their bots. But it's a great way to start limiting that for yourself.
I appreciate that. And I think somebody had a question on chat that I also have.
Similar. Is it about SEO?
Well, no, it's about using boosts on Facebook. Is that worth it?
So we've done a bunch of studies on that, and it sometimes if Facebook boosted post can actually be more productive for a client than a completely fleshed out campaign. And so the short answer is yes, but the more elaborate thing is you do want to go ahead and choose which posts to promote. A lot of times folks will get excited to promote a post and they'll make a post and immediately promote that post, but you could miss the mark there. I would recommend reviewing your most recent posts over the last 30 to 60 days. Whichever one did really well organically, in other words, with no promotion, go ahead and start to promote that post because it's also going to do well elsewhere. What Facebook and Instagram don't want you to know, that their big dirty secret is when you post to that, about 2% of anyone who's following you is going to see that. And nearly no one who is not following you will see that unless you're using hashtags. When you boost a post, suddenly 98% of the people following you see that post. And you're now also appearing to people who have never seen you before, but also have some interests in you. So I highly recommend it, especially when you're first getting started, because it's lightweight, it's easy. You can do it from your phone and set a simple budget. But I think the common mistake is just boosting a random post. See which ones did really well and then boost that post.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so thanks, Nancy. I appreciate your questions. Okay, so before we go to G and Elizabeth, I wanted to just, oh, you're good. Okay, great. Your hand's raised. Okay. Pippa Nava had asked, I get same thing, sort of. I get bombarded by emails asking to help improve my website, especially the SEO side of things. Where should I go to find a quality person to help with this? Would this same person be able to help with content and management as you have discussed here?
Definitely. I mean, my biggest recommendation would be right here with us at Denver Marketing Solutions. But to be fair, Google has a list of what's called Google Premier Partners, and these are vetted agencies that are out there that really are just designed to cut through some of that fat. Through that shopping process, you really want to find a group that is well experienced and well versed, but ideally mostly domestic or U.S. based. A lot of the pain points people experience with SEO is it can be very slow to get the changes you want. And a lot of that has to do with things getting lost in translation and in time. Without being too shameless with the self-promotion, content creation, search engine optimization, nearly everything we've discussed today does fall within Denver Marketing Solutions scope.
Yeah, and I'll be sending out information about Josh and also their company, as well as the tips and tools booklet and lots of free items that he gives. He is so generous. So, you're going to get a lot. You're getting a lot of information here for free, in terms of getting him access to him right now. It's powerful. And then also that tips and tools booklet is going to be amazing. So, okay, I'm going to call on Elizabeth, and then I'm going to go to the questions after that. So asking you to unmute, Elizabeth.
Hi. Just because Nextdoor is so valuable for the small, very localized businesses, how much do you know, and what do you know, and what do you suggest about posting and advertising on Nextdoor?
Certainly. And might I ask, are you a local business?
Local to Denver? No.
No, in
I'm
general,
in
like
California.
you serve a local area or a regional area or
Yeah.
maybe even national?
Oh, so it's just me, so it's very local.
Got it.
An 8
No,
mile radius.
love it.
Okay,
Love it.
very local.
Next door.
Yeah, very local, and that's why,
Yeah.
I have followers from all over the world, but they're not going to do much good for me as far as actual customers. So Nextdoor has probably been my best avenue for getting new customers, but I'm just wondering what, if anything, should I do as far as advertising on Nextdoor and that sort of thing.
So I do like Nextdoor. And for that matter, to some degree, Angie's List has some similar stuff in there. What's nice is it is hyper local, and
Yes.
so for you, that's a great marketing method. One that I like to recommend is for most small businesses, Google search advertising is too expensive, and they've kind of figured this out a few years ago. And they also noticed that a lot of people that needed licenses were advertising that shouldn't be because they don't have a license. For example, garage door repair, you need to be licensed. Electricians, you need to be licensed. And so what they did is they basically kicked everyone out and said, come back in. We have this new thing called a Google guarantee. It's also known as Google Home Service ads. What's nice about these, it's an extensive vetting program, similar to what you may have done with Nextdoor. But then once you've been vetted, once you've been approved, and if you are a local home service business, you can't be like a large conglomerate. You have to be a smaller entity. You're going to get what's called a Google guaranteed placement, and your ad or your listing, in other words, stays at the top of Google guaranteed because you have been vetted. So I often, people who have found success in Nextdoor, I recommend they check out these Google Home Service ads and these Google Guarantee ads because there's very little competition. And once you're vetted, you're guaranteed that position. Something to note, though, is they do background checks on every client-facing individual before you can get that guarantee.
That sounds amazing.
Is that something that you don't have to pay for?
The vetting you do not have to pay for, but then once it comes time, you do have to pay for your listing, and that's a monthly cost, and that's as much as you would want. So the way that looks is you can start with as little as $50 towards Google. When that runs out, they'll stop showing your listing. If you give them $1,000, they'll keep your listing up there indefinitely in that case.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Okay, so Sarah asked, how important is it to have Instagram? If I make an Instagram account, can I just reshare from my Facebook? Or if I make an Instagram post, can I just reshare from my Facebook?
Oh, I'd say especially if you're already using Facebook or vice versa, if you're using Instagram but not Facebook, definitely set up the other profile and connect them because you're going to get twice the exposure in social networks, but also two times the amount of opportunities to show up for that post in search results. So I'd say it's definitely something to not be overlooked. But don't feel like you have to reinvent whatever you're doing on Instagram or Facebook to meet the other profile. Those two play very nicely because they're both owned by Meta. So whatever you're already doing, just keep doing it, but then let it simulcast your message to the other platform. So I'd say go for it.
Yeah. Okay, great. And then Joni asks, what are some of the social media platforms? She wrote coming up, I think maybe up and coming. What are platforms that are good for each generation? That's a great question.
Certainly. Discord is a big one with no matter what generation you're trying to reach right now, that one is growing. I know some people in the tech and cybersecurity space who use it for business purposes, and I know kids who use it for gaming purposes. So that one's growing leaps and bounds. Another one that's small but emerging, especially in the Northeast corridor, is Coil Social, Koil Social. Now, this one's for strictly for high school kids. So if that's your demographic, that would be where you'd want to go. Uh, and what we're starting to see in general, Coil Social is a good example of this, is fracturing of larger social media entities. So, for example, Coil focuses on college prep and kids who are geared towards that, and that's what they're currently focused on. So there's going to be a lot more of what we call micro profiles popping up. But really what all the, or pardon me, not micro profiles, micro social networks, but what all the rage and what a lot of us are talking about in the industry is what we're calling the super app. And there's already some of these starting to emerge. Google Home or your Alexa Home is a good example of this. And what these apps do is they combine all of your apps into one. So for example, the Google Home can take all of your video apps, your Hulu, your Netflix, your whatever it is, and they put it into one app. They simplified it for you. What we're expecting in 2023 and 2024 is super apps to become all the rage, where one app can control your X account, your Facebook account, your Snapchat, you name it. And so that's what I would keep an eye out for, is maybe not necessarily who the new emerging medium is, but who the big super app is going to be that's going to combine them all.
Great. Okay, good. And then let's see. So Sarah had asked, how much does it cost on average to hire somebody to run socials for me? I found someone, but she wants $40 an hour at a minimum of $12 a week, and that seems extremely high. That seems like an extremely high amount of hours to just cruise socials.
That is, and it can vary wildly. That's a full-time position. And I would recommend maybe looking through an agency who has an economy of scale. So by having relationships with these platforms and having tools that allow them to do more with less, essentially, you're going to see less hours needed. But frankly, if someone were to post for you every day, multiple times a day, to multiple platforms, that alone can be a full-time job, especially if it's just one person doing it. So depending on what the scope of work was quoted there, it could definitely be within reason. I'm more of a fan of things that just have a monthly rate, a set of deliverables, and that's what you receive from them, rather than cutting it up hourly in that sense. Most agencies charge, depending on services, anywhere from $500 to about $5,000 a month to facilitate social media posts or campaigns. But I hope that helps to give you kind of a better picture there. It can be so hard depending on what the needs are of any given individual to quote that though.
It's really usually a customized service, correct?
Exactly.
Depending on the business needs, what they're wanting, because there's so many variables in terms of that. And
Yes.
their goals, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, no one size fits all. It's
Yeah,
all needs to be customized.
exactly. Okay, and Kendall asked, does connecting your social media accounts, for example, Facebook and Instagram, to each other, does that make your social media accounts more likely to be hacked?
It's debatable. I mean, so the rule of thumb there too is try not to have unified logins. So what I mean by that, if you've ever been to a website and they say log in with Google, log in with Facebook, um, now what you've created is a situation is if a hacker gets a hold of one of those logins, they now have many logins. And so the way these individuals work is they'll find a login that works, and then they will immediately take that login and try every other social profile, every email account you can imagine, and see if it's the same password. And so by not using a unified login and making sure all of your passwords are unique, that's going to help you. They say you shouldn't remember any of your passwords, and it's not because someone's going to hold a gun to your head and ask what's your password. It's because you should probably have it in what's called a password manager. So something like TrueKey is a good one. LastPass is a good one. Those will keep your passwords elsewhere. You never see them. It just automatically gets inserted when needed in those profiles. So the short answer is yes. By connecting multiple things under one password, you open yourself up to a little risk. But just make sure that password's unique, and you should be safe.
Okay, great. And then Elizabeth says, should we be listed on Alexa, Siri, etc.? I get emails offering to do that.
I mean, I'd say sure. That is kind of an SEO thing, though. If you're going through the steps of SEO, you should be registered with Apple Maps. That will get you on Siri. You should be registered with Google Maps. That'll get you on Google Home. And vicariously, if you register yourself with Microsoft My Business, you're now in Alexa as well. So these are things that a small business can do with a few hours in their afternoons. Just sign up for those three things. You'll be in those searches.
Great. Okay, good. And then Kendall says, I have a second question. Any examples of affordable ways to create a website? I'm not very tech savvy.
Certainly. I mean, we'll throw our hat in the ring there, but I'd say Wix or Weebly. Those are the best ones in the last few years. What I like about them is they have what we call a WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get, and you can drag and drop and make a website. But they also, if you ever are ready to grow into a more comprehensive site, they allow you to get into the code, get under the hood, and really cut those sites up in a way that most WYSIWYGs won't let you. So it's a great way to get started, build a website today, have a good support structure where they'll help you get the site going. Then when you're ready to push your foot to the floor and really accelerate things, if you built it on Weebly or Wix, you're on a platform that allows you to do that.
Great. Okay, good. And then if anybody has any questions, feel free to write them in the chat. So Matt, this is the final question I have so far, but Matt asked, Josh, what all does your company do?
Certainly. So our core areas of expertise are search engine marketing, so the paid side of search. And that includes things like image and video advertising. So a lot of people think it's just Google search. No, it's pretty involved. It can be a pretty large scope of things. We do search engine optimization. That's the non-paid side of search engines. So that's your organic listings. We do social media management. And last but not least, we do video production and promotion. And that one's pretty fun too, because it's not just YouTube. It's also things like Hulu, the Disney Plus app, things to that effect. What's nice is no matter what services, we work with small to medium-sized companies, as well as very, very large conglomerates. We're very big in customization and believe that there's learning at every stage of the business environment.
Okay, great. G, asking you to unmute.
Hi again. So I wanted to ask about Nextdoor, because that's one that I have an interest in trying to use more with the Facebook and Instagram. The Meta, I like that you can just do one and then it sends it to where it needs to go. I wish it would also send it to Nextdoor. In general, what can you tell me about Nextdoor? And how often should I post? Basic information.
So with Nextdoor, I mean, they're not very good too about letting businesses post extremely frequently. I forget exactly what the cap is, but I did have a client run into that where they hit a cap where they could not post anymore. So there is a limit there. In terms of if it will let you post daily, I mean, I would sick your mother on being able to take your existing posts and just start doing those daily in Nextdoor. She wouldn't even have to do anything but take what already exists and kind of bring it into the Nextdoor space. So that's a good way to start getting it moving a little bit. What Nextdoor, what makes it very unique is its ability to kind of have Angie List like features built into it. So you can find like a contractor in there to fix something, or you can find somebody right down the street who wants to pick up your old couch because you're done with it. It's very varied on what it can be used for. I would say in terms of a marketing platform, though, if you were going to do any sort of paid promotion, your marketing dollar is better spent in Instagram and Facebook because they have such a larger audience. So I think it was like 2.9 billion is currently Facebook, and that's not even including Instagram. And so for every dollar you spend or every minute you spend setting up posts, you're going to get the most reach out of it. So it's the wisest investment in your time or your marketing dollar. That said, don't neglect Nextdoor. It's still a piece out there, and it's something to be looked at.
And I have something to add to G about that. So a lot of my coaching clients have actually asked their clients or customers to post on Nextdoor. It's a way to get reviews. They call it recommendations. So if you have a business listed on Nextdoor, then whenever anybody posts about your business, they'll have the option to actually tag your business. So I would encourage you to reach out to clients who frequently say, oh, I love what you're doing, and just ask if they're willing to write a little post about Nextdoor and how much it would help your small business. A lot of customers and clients are eager to help small businesses. That's one of the gifts of the pandemic. A lot of people realize the value of small business, right? And how impactful it is for the economy, for community, for connection, and caring for each other in terms of services and products and all of that. And your cat is just so cute.
Thank you. Yeah. I will agree with the pandemic portion. I know that where I am, they came up with a lot of groups. Like I'm in the city of Laurel, so we have like Laurel Connect. And that has helped me to expand in the community. I am starting to hear, I know you. And I'm like, yes.
Wonderful. That is so great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the more you can be seen all over, and I would imagine maybe Josh will agree with me here, because it's like the know, like, trust factor, right? All of that comes into play, and it plays with each other, and it's like a complete sphere in terms of connection. And so if you can be on Nextdoor, if you can also be posting on Facebook, if you have signs on your car, if that's appropriate for your type of business, okay. So, then people start seeing you, and then it's like what clients used to say about my business when I had my pet care business is after a while they would say, I see you everywhere. And then I knew, like, I am doing my job, because that, and it wasn't, it was figuratively, not literally, right? But, they saw me a number of times throughout the year.
Right.
And so they begin to trust, too. It takes a while for a stranger to begin trusting a business or a business owner, especially one that will be going in their home or helping them with their money or their mental health issues or, something that is intimate and personal. So it's so important to be seen in as many locations as you can. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
last question.
Oh,
I
yeah.
have two businesses.
Mhm.
And originally, my first business had some pet care. I've
Mhm.
separated the pet care out and created one dedicated to the solely just pet care. The other one, I've minimized some. I pulled back on some of the services. However, I'm still I'm tagging both of my businesses in some things. Is
Mhm.
that weird? Okay.
What do you say, Josh?
I mean, the hard and fast rule that they'll tell you is you want to separate them into two separate profiles, two separate websites. But honestly, back to the SMART goal, is it realistic and manageable?
Well, I have both websites, and they have their own profiles.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I post on my business, on the pet care business. I am barely posting on the other one. It's so, I haven't posted anything in like 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
But I tag it in my postings. When I post something for the business, I tag in the other business. I tag my personal self for my Instagram,
Mhm.
and I tag my other business, so that way it's just like all three of me are here in your face.
I see. And well, the tag's not, I misunderstood too. I understood it to be a duplicate post. Tagging's not as detrimental in terms of a brand, especially if you're just starting to develop that other brand. It can actually help if the profile you're tagging from is larger. It could help to have some bleed over into that other profile. That said, too, if you were to promote a post that has a tag in it, you could get some dual benefit there. You could maybe get some benefit for your second business. And it just depends how you're posing yourself on social media. Are they poised as completely separate entities? Are they poised as cousins, so to speak? If they're poised as cousins, I don't see anything wrong with the tagging of it. It could water down a brand that's trying to separate itself or distinguish itself.
I would call them cousins. I use the same font and things like that. I kind of like the same style of things. Some people haven't even noticed that the words on my van changed because the font's the same. Because I still wanted to be catchable. Because I've seen that van before, so I didn't want to change it
Mm-hmm.
dramatically. If that
Mhm.
kind of makes sense. So yeah, I would say they're cousins.
Perfect. I'd keep with your strategy there. And if the other profile ever gets wildly bigger, maybe reconsider things. And the van, that does change things. So you want that brand consistency then.
Thank you. I think that's my last one.
No worries.
No, great questions. I appreciate it. I'm sure your questions are helping others as well. So Sarah asks, what about advertising that you are hiring on your socials? Does that hurt or help or have a neutral effect on social media?
So, it depends too on the type of position. Um, I'd say go for it as long as it doesn't become like super frequent on social media, because that can have a negative impact where people are going to begin to say, wait a minute, they're having some high turnover. Didn't they just hire for that position? They might say, wow, they sure are growing a lot. But the tendency for most people is to kind of lean towards the turnover side of things. And they might worry about, other parts of the company not being as well structured. I recommend job boards, just traditional ones like Indeed work very well. They have paid placements on Indeed, but there's also some free ones out there provided by Google. Google Jobs is a free listing that you can kind of put some feelers out there with. What's nice is it kind of puts that stuff in that space. So if someone is looking for a job. Another nice one that's kind of like a cool, happy medium here is LinkedIn, because they literally have a feature in there to say, you're currently looking for work. And it'll know what kind of work based off of what your LinkedIn profile states. So that can be another great way to have your cake and eat it too. You are on social media, but it's completely socially acceptable to be talking about job postings in that environment.
Great. And to piggyback on that, I want to say Facebook Help Wanted is good too, to really target market for the area that you're located in. Nextdoor is another good place. That being said, when you are posting, especially if you have like home services like pet care, I would recommend that you are really clear about the type of person that you hire, that you are committed to hiring excuse me, responsible, reliable, trustworthy, amazing people to add to your existing great team or something like that, because that's going to alleviate potential concerns perhaps that if your clients see that and they're like, oh my gosh, they're hiring, who is going to be in my home, that can be kind of comforting to them to see that you have a very high standard in terms of vetting. So I would recommend that. Elizabeth has a question. Go ahead and ask your question. Ask you to unmute, Elizabeth.
I was just wondering, on Nextdoor, I often see people posting that their kids are available to do pet sitting, or someone's home from college for the week or for the summer or something, and looking for odd jobs, including pet sitting and that kind of thing. Is it good or not good to try to counter or rebut those people, to say, yeah, do you have a license? Do you have insurance? Do you have, things like that? Because these people are obviously much lower priced but also not professional, not trained, not, they don't have the things that I offer. So is it good or is it better to just ignore them, or any suggestions?
I mean, from my opinion on that, I'd say it's best to let them be, because your brand and yourself could be negatively impacted by a third party reading that in any social network. But that said, sing the praises of being licensed, insured, above bar wherever you can. Show the world why you are different, and that what you've described is your key differentiator. That's why you are better than the next closest competitor next to you. And so that can be used to develop some of your content later down the line, both on your website or maybe your social media platform. But I try to avoid beating up on the little guy, so to speak, and just keep singing your praises as your company and your entity.
Yeah,
that's been my feeling too. But
good. And I wanted to say to Josh and Elizabeth that, like Josh was saying, I mean, people are going to be looking at this, so it's really important to if you're wondering how your rebuttal, for lack of a better word, might land, I would have someone read it and say, how does this come across to you before I post on Nextdoor? Because once you post it, even if you delete it, a day later, people are going to remember it. So be careful. I would tread very carefully. And personally, I would probably err on the side of not posting, just because, or you could say, like Josh was saying, I'll throw my hat in the ring. I'm a licensed, bonded, and insured pet sitter, who has been in business for 20 years or something.
Right. And if someone asks for a sitter, I definitely do that. And I start out with saying, I'm a certified professional pet sitter, and and I list my qualifications and that sort of thing. But it's these little people, it gets annoying.
Yeah.
To see.
I would imagine so. But that's a very different clientele than you're wanting, most likely. Those clients who are getting a high school kid in there, they're probably going to be on a budget, or they want to help that person have a job, for the summer or something like that. So you may want to think about, would somebody who hires a high school kid or, is even thinking about it be my ideal client? Perhaps not, right?
Yes and no, because I'm solo. They're almost my direct competitor because I'm a very small business too, and I'm
But
not
you're
just
licensed. But you're licensed and insured, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not doing it just for the summer. This is my job.
Oh, I hear you.
So, it's
So I would imagine it might be a little triggering, when that happens.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my gosh, they're going to undercut me or
right.
whatever that is. So, perhaps gently saying, but having somebody really review what you're going to write about that. And then anytime somebody posts about meeting a pet sitter or dog walker.
Oh, I definitely do that. I haven't, like I said, I haven't responded to those others yet, but it sure is tempting.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, but again, like, it's kind of like restraint of pen and tongue, that's what I've learned in terms of when I get charged. It's important. What I try to do is like back myself up a little bit, because from that place, I am not going to make the most wise decision in terms of what communication I'm relaying in that moment.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And then G. Okay. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. It's okay.
Thank you.
I see you, G. You're like, oh my gosh, I have another question. It's okay. It's good. Asking you to unmute. There you are.
Well, as I was listening to a lot of the questions that I had first had my hand up, because I wasn't sure about what type of post it was, if it was somebody recommending their kids or somebody like saying, hey, I need a dog walker, and then somebody recommending their kids. But that raised me to another question. I don't comment on any of those posts when I see my kids home or Rover or whatever. I ignore all of those things. But when I do see somebody and it works well in those neighborhood groups on Facebook, I just put in my website in the comments. However, my question is, should I add more information, or I just drop the website in and I'm like, let the chips land where they may?
I would add a little bit, because just posting, if I were somebody needing a pet sitter or dog walker, I would probably look at that. I would like to see a little personal information. How long you've been in business, if you're insured, licensed, bonded. I love pets, something. I mean, it's obvious that you would if you're a pet sitter, but still, I know, yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Okay, and I'm thinking you guys certified with pets, so that's definitely the clientele I want like that.
Yeah, okay, great. The other thing I'd like to say is that it is good, like piggybacking on what you say, G, about these local Facebook groups. Like, that is a fantastic way. Let's say you're in Florida and there's like a dog lovers, or more specific, Sarasota dog lovers, or San Francisco, Boston Terrier group, or that would be good too. And you don't want to be like chiming in every post saying, hey, I'm a pet sitter, but once in a while, especially if somebody is asking for it, it's a great idea. Yeah. Any other questions? Oh, let's see. Pippanova asked, any recommendations for a good Instagram class? So I don't think, you don't teach that, right, Josh? I think I've asked you about that before.
No, not currently. We don't have any sort of like decks created for it.
Okay.
It could be a class of its own, though. I do see where we're coming from there.
Yeah, and that is something that I've been thinking about as well. I did have someone that taught it for my coaching clients a couple of years ago, and she's no longer teaching Instagram for some reason. So I do have my feelers out, so I just want to let you guys know at some point I'll probably be posting about that. So let's see. I would just want to say this from Sarah. Do you have another question, G, or is your hand? Okay. Sarah said, I did post on Indeed and just hired 2 people from it, and also got a client that saw my job ad on Indeed and they needed a sitter instead, laugh out loud. I just wanted to get in the eyes of people that know me and follow me, but not use my services yet if they want a job, because if they follow my page, they're clearly already pet people. Yeah, that's true. Okay, great. So we are at the end of the time here. Wonderful, wonderful people. So I'm going to be giving you a moment in a minute, Josh, to just say what you're going to be offering once more. But I just want to let everybody know I'm going to be sending the tips and tools booklet to you. Josh is going to be sending me information about his special offer that he's going to be going over. I'll also include that as well. I do want to say quickly, I have a brand new 28-day boot camp that is happening, and it's a business and life boot camp for badass women. So it is only for women, and it's for all types of business owners. And I'm going to be offering super low special price for you guys who are on here, women that are on here today, I should say. So I'll send information about that as well. And so, Josh, would you like to go ahead and share a little bit?
Certainly.
Okay.
Really what we're offering today is just the chance to have another conversation. We'd like to offer for everyone here to develop a video vignette for you. Those were those videos we had a look at very early in today's presentation. These are the videos you're commonly used to seeing on things like YouTube or Facebook as an advertisement. And so what these do is they'll take your existing marketing assets, your logo, your color, your theme, your fonts, your styles, and we'll create a video for you that you can then upload to whatever social media platform or YouTube profile, whatever you prefer. They also look really great on homepages of websites. So that's completely free, as well as a digital market analysis, which I know on its face doesn't sound like the most pretty thing and most fun thing to have a look at, but this is a handy tool. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife because it's going to look at where you currently stand digitally, where your competitors currently stand within your local market, and then it's going to outline what we suggest as the ideal digital marketing strategy for you. That's yours to keep. You can do what you please with that. You can try to act on it on your own, or we're more than happy to help consult and develop some of the strategies we recommend in that. But I really think the biggest value is the chance to have another conversation, look at that market analysis together, and then leave with free videos that you can then use in some of these marketing platforms.
Elizabeth asked, how do we get them to do the video and the other? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Elizabeth. The market analysis.
Who do we contact? How do we get them?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to be sending you information about that via email. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, good. Thanks for asking. Okay, well, let's see. So I'm going to go to the page here. So I just want to thank everyone for being here today. I especially want to thank you, Josh, for your valuable, informative information, for your generosity, all this information that you've shared today. What a gift. And, you know, that you're going to further offer that with these video vignettes. So thank you so much. And I know that, just to let everybody know, we do have a video marketing masterclass happening next month that Josh will be teaching. And then the month after will be the AI class. So you'll find out more about that coming up in further months here. And thank you, everybody, for being here. I'm really grateful for you all, and I wish you a beautiful evening. I'm in Hawaii. I'll give you a little snapshot of the jungle here. Yeah, so I'm sending you all a lot of aloha, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Kristen, and thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.
Take care, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Recording stopped.
Bye.